Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back again to bring you my guide for how to spend your bullions, whether you're holy or disc, as well as some of my plans personally, as I've been playing both. So first, let's start it off with talking about just Mythic Plus, since both of the spends that a holy or disc main would do would basically be about the same. With this, first thing I'm going to be buying is going to be a weapon. And I know what you're thinking, it's going to be Vikash. And some people have already kind of pointed out that, like, hey, you could buy Dreambinder and then get a higher eye level upgrade from the very beginning. To that, I say you're working on buying your bis. That's kind of what the Bullion system is about. You want to make sure you have the longest term benefit, and that would be Vikash. Also keep in mind that more of your main hand is weighted towards your primary stat than your offhand, so it's not like you're splitting into half the stats or anything like that by not buying Dreambinder. It again also sucks that you don't have a staff transmog. That's another complaint I've heard quite a bit, and I agree. But Vikash is still going to be the best option for you. And again, if you're looking for like the long term, that's probably the one I would buy. It's kind of disappointing because I also understand wanting to buy a trinket, and there's some really, really good ones to be able to have access to. So again, for a Mythic Plus perspective, the first trinket that I'm going to end up buying is going to be Ward of Faceless Ire. Ward is enormously flexible, and it's also just a better leaf. Sitting there at 493 with 900 intellect is a lot better than 700 mastery out of, 483 Leaf of the Ancient Protectors, right? The Absorb is going to be even stronger as well, and it's just a really highly weighted trinket. It's not giving you too much of a penalty for your HPS, so encounters where you just need raw HPS, like Khajiit in a third boss in Halls of Infusion, right? Everybody's going to know that one soon. It's just flexible, and it works extremely, extremely well. After that, this is where things can get a little bit murkier. I think that 99% of players, 99% of Holy Disc Mythic Plus players should just run Ward, actually, for all their keys. There's going to be some keys that obviously do no damage or low enough, but this trinket is just extremely clutch, and as it stands right now, there's just plenty of one-shots, and they're happening really quickly for us as we progress throughout our dungeons, just like last season. So the flexibility to cast it on whomever you choose, and it's not kind of costing you anything with the primary stat, first thing that you want to make sure you end up buying. After that, like I said, it gets a little murkier. If you're going for a stat stick and you're focusing on output, it would probably be Ominous Chromatic Essence, being able to flex this into haste or verse, depending on what your group needs or what you need. Fantastic. We'd love to be able to see it. And if you're focusing on, I would say, damage and safety, make sure you set the top bar here with Izanormi to all, so you can scroll over to Firax Rage Heart. This is going to be an option that I already have in last season set up, so I probably won't buy this for a while. But for those of you that can, I would only buy this after you get Ward. It's a minute and a half cooldown and a way stronger Absorb, but sometimes it can be a little overkill compared to the Ward, which is not as likely to be. So that's something to keep in mind. As much as I love Rage Heart, I'm not going to get it until after I end up getting the Ward trinket. Following that, that's also where you want to start looking for Bellarellos. I would say after you have Ward, you can either go for Bellarellos or you can end up going for the Rage Heart. The Tome of the Ancient, I think it's Tome of the Ancient Protectors in Azure Vault is a crazy high DPS trinket, but Bellarellos is the strongest, especially because you're able to use it to, help kill totems and help kill prio targets. This is by far the damage trinket that you want to make sure you focus on this season. So keep in mind, even LFRs, even normal raid difficulties are going to be extremely valuable to be running this week and into the next one when we revisit Mirdrasil. A couple of honorable mentions to Brood Keepers in M+, and if you're a Holy Priest, Seedling. I really want to try Seedling in a key environment, especially when AoE output's required. I really want to grab this trinket and try it on Khajiit and just kind of see how it's going to react. Or actually just using it in halls in general, because you have the first boss, the stone guy with the static shocks, that this would be really cool burst. So something on my list that I want to eventually get, but it's far from anything I'm getting in the first few Bullion purchases out there. For a raiding environment, things get a bit different for both the specs. So let's start with disc. Obviously, weapon first, like we had mentioned before, that's going to be your priority. Huge amount of output is tied to it. For disc in raids, Ominous Chromatic Essence is a fantastic purchase, and even if you're not buffing other people, it's still very strong. And the other option on hand, there's not a lot of great ones. You don't really have any minute-and-a-half cooldown trinket anymore to be able to rely on, the way that we had Balefire Branch. And you might even just use Balefire Branch for a while, probably until a later Bullion purchase, or if you get lucky in raids or something like that, as it was insanely, insanely highly rated back in Amirdrasil, even with, higher eye level options. So it'll probably be fine for a while. Keep that in mind. After you start getting higher level options, though, Ominous Chromatic Essence is fantastic. Dragon Scale is not bad, but it's not the top selection. Rashox is really only good if you're buffing other people. You take quite a bit of an HPS output if you do take this trinket. So, yeah, not highly recommended. So, for Disc, it's really just the Ominous Chromatic Essence and, like, the Incarnate Icon. The Incarnate Icon, even without buffing other people, is just performing really well with the Questionably Epic sims that he does on the site. So that's really going to be the next option. Shield Globe is really bad, by the way. I have one. It's just really bad, in case you were wondering. Wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I have it because it's like 300 more intellect than, the other things I had. It's not a good trinket, though. Yeah. Do not recommend. There is maybe some premise for Ashes the Ember Soul. This is a trinket I already have and kind of want to see how it's going to perform with some of the damage patterns. You'd think across, 27 bosses or something like that, 25 bosses throughout all these raids. One of them or a couple of them might have some decent 2-minute timers, so something I'll mention, but it's pretty much just going to be double stat sticks, unfortunately. Pips is not bad either. This wasn't really too heavily changed or anything, just stat sticks in general that have primary stat on them and are helping you get to the haste levels that you're going to need to sustain for all those smites. Probably going to be the angle. I am kind of considering, especially when I get like max geared, to see how like Shadow Fiend on every fight would be with just the maxed out haste possible, like digging into all the DRs. Maybe I'll try that for a video if you guys are interested. For Holy in a raid environment, you really are going to be enjoying Avarice coming out this week because there's a lot of really good trinket options that you're able to pick up there. But the ideal buy, if your raid focuses a Holy Priest, is going to be the Ominous Chromatic Essence. The next best trinket overall that you can get is the Black Dragon Scale. So you already have the options from the raids themselves, and even if, you could just get into a group for Mythic, and I don't know if the first 3 is going to be puggable or not, but certainly trying, or at least the very first boss, because the trinket options in here for Holy are absolutely phenomenal. Mel's Call to Suffering is okay. It's not one of the best options, but it's certainly better than a lot of Mythic Plus trinkets, since the Mythic Plus options are just really, really bad this season. Smoldering Seedling is also a really strong option. It's just not going to be as good at the moment as we're seeing out of the OCE and the Dragon Scale, but it certainly is in that like S tier of trinkets. Pips is a little bit below that, and also Broodkeeper is another really good trinket option that you can have on hand. So there's a lot of like very good raid trinkets out there that Holy's able to take advantage of. If you're raiding or M+ing, I would really just get the Lariat first. Both specs really like Choker of Shielding. It's also just really nice to be able to have that absorb. But as I drop the next couple gems from my gear, I have a couple more that I'm going to be dropping. Getting 50k when you only have like 3 gems is not going to be that big of a deal, but getting extra stats at a Lariat is going to be, I would say, just stronger than having a super weak Choker of Shielding. I'll be making this later on in the season, or upgrading it later on in the season, once I get a few more sockets and have more resources on hand. But I would say get your Lariat upgrade first. If you are raid focused for Holy or Disc, the time dilation wrists are still very good. They're like whopping 1k or something like that HPS higher than having like Verdant Tether. So if you're Mythic Plus focused, depending on if you pug a lot or you have a set group, you might want to just get the Engineering Bracers first, and then your first embellishment as a Mythic Plus Holy Priest or Mythic Plus Disc Priest would be like a Verdant Tether embellishment that you put on, probably like a ring after that. Last thing, I also just want to give a quick highlight for Questionably Epic, since it kind of comes up every season and people aren't quite sure what it is. If you check out the link, it's going to be in the description down below as well. This is QE Live. They're the real main spot that's doing all kinds of healer sims. They're where the theory craft happens. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so. Brass tacks for what you can figure out in terms of your item upgrades, embellishments like we were just talking about and how strong they are, and also a trinket graph, which can help you as you're gearing up. go to Question the Epic Live. You can also load in your own character, or you can just use some of these default builds. So for example, if we were going to look at like Holy Priest trinkets, you're able to either import your character or to be able to go through with their defaults, and then it's going to be able to pull up the trinket ratings for you and also the breakpoints. So you can then see, hey, you got a Broodkeeper's Promise that was really high eye level this week. Do you want to replace it with XYZ item? It's all going to be right here for you. They also go over some of the embellishments like we were just talking about to be able to show that, oh man, Lariat is so much stronger. It's less than 1,000 HPS, right? And you can see those things firsthand if you wanted to be able to check them out. It's fantastic for the beginning of every season. I'm usually using it for like the trinkets and embellishments. Definitely check out the site because it's enormously useful for healers, and it's just a great way to be able to compare a lot of those items as you're having a lot of churn with your resources. We also have lots more alpha to cover, and we'll be covering all of the healers going into the War Within. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'll catch y'all next time.